I'd achieved the kind of success I wanted, but I just wasn't happy. My dad had died, grown the business, and I was having to work with all these nightmare clients. And then I had a friend of mine who she's designed the website, designed that whole personal brand, that nevharris.com. And I was talking to her and I'm like, I'm just not happy. It's just, I don't know what to do with the business. And she says, why do you worry so much about local businesses? She says, we're in an international economy. She says, you could work all over the globe. And we had friends that did that. She did that. She was in Australia. Most of her clients were in the US. We had friends that traveled the globe and that lived the digital nomad lifestyle.
Hello, welcome back. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. This is the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. I'm your host, Adam Finan. Today's guest is Nev Harris. Nev specialises in helping agencies and freelancers to manage their cash flow and take care of their finances. For all listeners to this podcast, you will get his course, which is $197, Cashflow Made Simple, for free during the coronavirus by putting in the code FCOVID over at nevharris.com. You can get access to this course, which shows easy systems for injecting flexibility and peace of mind into managing your cash flow, how to make better business forecasts and thresholds. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Head over to digitalnomadcafe.com for all the links and resources mentioned.
Welcome to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast, the show where we discuss what it takes to create a sustainable long-term online business in today's fast-moving environment. We talk with industry experts and freelancers alike to find out what it takes to build and manage a location-independent business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. I'm your host, Adam Finan, and today's guest is Nev Harris from nevharris.com. Nev is an agency owner and his superpower is teaching people how to understand their money. Nev, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
So Nev, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Well, I'm an agency owner and I help other agency owners understand their money because I think they can understand their money. The problem is it was just never explained simply to them.
Yeah, I mean, you find that a lot of, both agency owners and freelancers, this has come up on a number of episodes, and it's very important right now when cash flow maybe is a bit difficult for some people. But, managing your cash flow or the improper management of your money, it can stifle your growth, essentially. It can mean you can't take on bigger projects because you're waiting on payouts from other projects, and that can stifle you. So is that something you would see?
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely. That you could be having, like you said, a really great month, but yet you're worried that you're not going to have enough money to pay your bills in 5 days because you're worried about where you're getting the other money in.
Chasing invoices, oh man, I've been there.
Yeah,
it's not fun. You're owed. You could be owed thousands, and you don't have the money for your rent. But on paper, you're loaded.
Yeah, exactly. That's real talk right there. That's how that happens.
Absolutely, and I guess so. Let's wind it back a little bit. How. Because your website over at nevharris.com, it's a very good website. You have courses, lots of free resources, and it's very well designed. It's a real good polished product. So, if we can wind it back to, when you graduated from the University of Pittsburgh and, you were working in accountancy, what made you look online? What made you look to this industry versus, maybe the more traditional accountancy routes?
Well, how much time do we have? Because that's a long story. No, let me try to sum it up really quickly. I graduated from Pitt, and then I went to get my MBA at Duquesne and in finance, and I was going to get involved in the finance field. And then, September 11th happened, and a couple other things happened. But I did have an internship at the end there, and I was stuck in a room for 10 hours a day staring at spreadsheets. And I was like, this is not going to be my life. So I didn't want to get involved exactly in finance. So I ended up having a mortgage company and other things in my 20s, which went really well till that didn't go well.
Yeah, and, 2008.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then fast forward, I ended up with a print publication. I've got a friend. I went for a company. It's the first job I had with a company. And after a year of that, I realized this is not for me. I was director of marketing and the portfolio analyst. So, and then so I bought this franchise, and it was print. Got started in there. It was pretty much just cold calling, knocking on doors, selling advertising. And then fast forward, I had a designer. I ended up getting another print magazine, and had a designer. He was really talented. And we had people that want us to build websites. And so we're like, yeah, what the hell? How hard's a website to design? Yeah, famous last words right there, right?
For sure. But I mean, that's a natural, I mean, even I know from dealing, excuse me, with a number of clients here in Ireland when I was doing a lot of the freelancing for people, and they would often be using the local paper, especially furniture stores and, large, places that sell these large items like that, bedding stores and furniture stores. And the most obvious upsell to me for the newspaper companies was always social media, Facebook ads, websites, yet none of them offered it. And until one of them did, that's the thing, nobody offered it till one of them did. And then all of a sudden that one of them was making far more than everybody else, because rather than just like a newspaper advert, which to be fair, I mean, most people didn't really put too much effort into, you know what I mean? It was lazy copy, lazy pictures. The advertisers or the places who were placing the ads would maybe just send a couple of pictures, and those graphic designers in those places were often overworked and rushed, last minute getting it ready for print. And it just, I mean, it wasn't the highest level of design, let's say, but, so that's, you could see that there was massive opportunity for that in Ireland. So clearly that's something that you've seen yourself as well. Is that right?
Yeah, and so I saw, because I had all these clients, is everything you just said, and then we started doing it, but we didn't do it pretty much online yet. We did stuff online, but we did it for local businesses, and then it didn't go as smoothly as planned. We grew the business to I had 9 people working for me. And but it was about a year ago, I was miserable. I'd achieved the kind of success I wanted, but I just wasn't happy. My dad had died, and I'd grown the business, and I was having to work with all these nightmare clients. And then I had a friend of mine who she's designed the website, designed that whole personal brand, that nevharris.com. And I was talking to her, and I'm like, I'm just not happy. It's just, I don't know what to do with the business. And she says, why do you worry so much about local businesses? It's not like just focusing strictly on local businesses. She says, we're in an international economy. She says, you could work all over the globe. And we had friends that did that. She did that. She was in Australia. Most of her clients were in the US. We had friends that traveled the globe and that lived the digital nomad lifestyle. And I said, you know what, you're right. And and then I said, what could I help people with? And for years I had been helping just a lot of people that I just ran into that were agency owners and freelancers understand their money, because it's something I'm passionate about. So, she helped me transition that into a business. So now we're completely online, and we've, even with our agency, we turn down more than probably 75% of the leads we get, because they don't fit our criteria anymore, because, we're playing in a much wider ocean, because we're, all digital now.
And I guess, a big part of that, especially for freelancers, but I mean, definitely it affects agencies too, is, knowing who your ideal clients are and knowing when to say no to people. Because like you're saying, some businesses are absolute headaches to work with, a nightmare.
Oh yeah, and I think I found every single one of them and worked with them at one time.
Oh look, I mean, I think anyone who freelances might tell you that they've had their fair share. But once you get to but you only get this with experience, because when you start out, you're like, yeah, you work with everybody because you're just trying to build that portfolio, you're trying to build that revenue, and then, once you like mature, I guess, as a business and as a business owner, you can kind of identify, okay, these are some tripwires when we're on board, and these are some things to look out for when screening clients. And, you don't just agree with everybody. And the irony of that is sometimes people then want to work with you more because they all know that they can't have you. Like if you're turning down 75% of people, some of them are like, what, man, I really want to work with you guys. Like, come on, and you might create that effect, where people don't, they're not guaranteed to work with you.
I agree with you 100, and they want to work with you, but they also, a lot of times, if you're not known for something, like having a niche for something, they want to work with you, but they also want to pay you $1,000, instead of, you're like, well, it's $8,000 for the product. They want to give you 1,000, so.
Well, that comes with specializing, like you're saying, and building a brand and building, like, as I mentioned when I went onto your website, I love it. It's brilliant. It ticks all the boxes from an online marketing perspective. You have your downloadables, you have your free resources, you have courses, you have the links to work with you. So it's very well done, very well thought out. Like, maybe it's just the marketer's brain in me. This is the sort of stuff I'm looking for when I'm looking through. Even podcast guests. I notice there's a media section where you share places where you've been featured in the media. Like, that's brilliant, and that helps to build that personal brand and build that authority, that you've done these things, and you have these resources where people can see that, you're legit and your stuff, and that gives you the authority then to charge and command a higher fee.
That it's funny. Like, one of the things I said was like, okay, instead of trying to I'm going to make myself a client and I'm going to do everything I want to do for my clients. Like that, they might not have the budget, or they might argue with me to do, or that, and I'm just going to do it for myself. So it was kind of fun to have a client that I didn't have to convince that I had the right idea.
For sure. But sometimes, I was only talking with somebody about this earlier, but like, humans by their nature self-sabotage,
Yeah.
They know, the things that people know the things that they should do, and they might even write them down on a list, and then they don't do it. And it's like, this is the thing that's going to move the needle, and even, we can get to talking about the money next, but I know this from experience. People put off looking at that, people put off looking at the money. They don't want to sit down and look at all the money that they're spending and where they're spending it and how much of it is being spent on stuff, software subscriptions and all sorts of things that maybe they're not fully using and utilizing, but they kind of justify it in some weird way that, this is part of the business, and therefore I should keep paying this money. So is that the sort of stuff you would see? People's reluctance, let's say, to take a serious look at their cash flow?
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's so much to unpack about what you just said there. People are scared to look at their money because they don't understand it, and they're worried what it's going to tell them, and they don't want to feel like defeated by it. In our community, in our space, see, it's funny that I laid out my background a little bit. I came about this in a different way. I don't know how to use Photoshop or Illustrator or even WordPress that well, but I had people that did, and I had the clients, and I had the ideas and the marketing for it, but I didn't have that knowledge. But what I did have was the business knowledge. So I understood that and why that's important, and I understood that you could understand that stuff. It's just because it's just really spoken in a language that's overly complex. So to bring it back around, it's just we creative people think that we can't understand our money because we're right-brain people. And we're not, and that's just for the accountant types. And I think that comes about, to get even deeper into it, from just the way money's been talked about for the last 150 years. It hasn't changed. It's the same conversation in the same language that they had 150 years ago about money. Everything else has evolved, the language and our feelings and our beliefs around it. But, and the entrepreneurial culture took off 50, 60 years ago, but what we learn about money didn't. We still teach Algebra 2 in school and everything like that, but we don't teach how to balance a checkbook.
No, I agree. Even this is funny because it's something I did recently. I went through a mortgage application, just to get how much could I borrow, what sort of houses could I be looking at. And I was doing the math with them on the phone. I was like, hold on, I want to work this out. How much interest am I going to pay over the lifetime of this mortgage? And they don't teach you that stuff at school, but when you do the math on it, you're like, holy Christ, that's theft. How do you justify putting that much interest? I know it's over 30 years or whatever, but when you actually do the math, you're like, Jesus Christ, that's shocking stuff. And that's how banks rule the world, but it's, like you're saying, they don't teach you those financial life skills, and even just, compound compound savings and building things up. And like in Ireland, we have a thing that's called a credit union, which is it's backed by the state. It's not necessarily a bank, but it's easier to borrow money out of. It'll let you borrow money against your savings. It's really clever. And most people, if they look after their finances, they would have a credit union account, and that's just it's something away from the banks, because if you're ever in hard times, credit union would always look after you. And that's good financial sense in Ireland. But if you don't have a parent who teaches it to you, you won't learn it. Like school won't teach you about it.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's not. It's the skills that they're not teaching that are so needed. When talking about understanding like mortgages and like finances and stuff like that, one of the many things that caused the 2008 financial crisis in the mortgage industry were people taking out these loans that they couldn't afford or they didn't understand. And there was this, and I was very proud that I worked in the subprime, the people worked with bad credit and everything like that, that really drove the mortgage crisis. But the people I worked with, I said, no, these products aren't good for you. Let's come up with a financial plan. And it was just like, and it didn't matter whether you were making 40,000 or 400,000. You would still have the same problems. You could still have bad credit because you just didn't learn. You could be the most brilliant person. And I worked with really smart, successful people who just didn't understand money, and no matter how much they were making, they had problems with it because their mindset and everything like that wasn't right about it. They never learned the basics of it. And I would just sit there and I'd almost give them finance, like basic 101 about finance and how to save and how to calculate that stuff. And how they would have these crazy ideas, and it was just what everybody did. It was just like, okay, you have $2,000 on a credit card. Instead of finding out a system to pay that off, they'd wrap it into a mortgage. And then they'd end up paying, like you said, like $15,000, $20,000 to pay off that $2,000. It was crazy.
I just couldn't, I don't know. I was nearly laughing at the girl on the phone. I was like, I couldn't believe, but that's just the way it is, and that's how it is. But it was, even just to understand it all was, they make it confusing on purpose, I think. But I guess if we get away from the topic of mortgage, because I don't want to go down too far down that rabbit hole. But I'd rather bring it back to the agency and the freelancers and managing the cash flow as a business. But yeah, I think they make things like that as confusing as possible, and even more so in America, because essentially they don't want you to separate the smoke and mirrors, and see the clear reflection of what it is. So look, I guess winding then into, so, you mentioned that your friend about a year ago, you had created that situation where, you had a lot of clients that, maybe you weren't happy. People, this happens. A lot of people, they get so busy and get so much work on, and then they don't actually love it anymore. And then you decided with your friend who was a designer to, take these things online. So once you kind of did that, where did you, because you were essentially going from being a local service provider in many ways to online, which is a big transition for anybody to do, it's no different for you in Pittsburgh than me in Sligo in Ireland. That's a different mentality and a different shift. So when you launched online, what sort of things did you do to help grow the business and the traffic, and get clients online versus in the local community?
Well, I've created a lot of content. We set out with a mission to help 10,000 agencies and freelancers understand their money through the free content we were giving out. And so everything we've done has revolved around trying to make an impact and help those 10,000 people. So, and I said we've transitioned our main functions now, our content creation and media marketing.
Sweet. That's an ambitious goal, but it's very clearly defined. So I guess when you have a clearly defined goal, it's you can put the steps in place then to get there, isn't it? Yeah,
and it's just it removes it from how do I make money today, and I could touch on a point about that too, but into how could we help more people today. And now I get up in the morning and I think to myself, no matter what happens, like when this whole thing happened with the pandemic, I had all sorts of speaking opportunities and travel coming up, and it all went away within a week. I had 5 speaking opportunities canceled, or one big trip where I was going to do a lot of networking, a lot of a big event canceled. And I was like, well, what do we do now? And I said, well, and then I look back into what gets us up in the morning, what drives us. It's helping people. How do we help people? We create content. So we just tripled down on creating more content. So instead of just creating content about understanding your numbers, I created content. I just recorded content about and helping people understand what's happening in the economy and helping people. We had these big confusing loan programs in this country. So I would just go on Facebook Live and just talk and just explain things and read and just be of value, be of service to people. And it's, with no thinking, how am I going to monetize this? With no monetization strategy from the beginning, just knowing what our mission was. And it's paid off. I've been able to make relationships and network with people and get into like partnerships that I couldn't have dreamed of a month ago.
Isn't it amazing how, like when you start doing that, or like maybe even like you knew you could have done that all along, or maybe there's a part of you that thought you should and then you didn't. And then when you're forced into this situation, you do it, and it's like the stars align and all these things come to you. And, I'm 100% on board with what you're saying there. Like, going on, putting in that value, especially for something complicated like money. I mean, it's funny. I'm building a website for my accountant actually, and through my team, and he's a bit shy about going on, video and doesn't really want to do it. And I'm like, dude, you need to get on LinkedIn and do videos and just answer people's questions because it's confusing. And like in Ireland, similar, there's lots of grants available. It's like, what grants are available for small businesses? Where should they go? What should they do? What help can they get? Just answer those questions, and let people ask you questions back. And that's what people want. And then they feel engaged. And then you're the trusted advisor at that point. That's essentially the goal. Like, you become the trusted advisor. And if they're seeking advice or if they're looking to hire somebody, I mean, who are they going to think of? Yeah,
100%, and then you get to feel good about what you're doing too, which always helps.
For sure. I mean, there's nothing better than that. I love getting those messages where people listen to, get these odd messages where people are like, oh, I was listening in and because I heard you talking with this person, I decided to start a website, or I got my freelancing act together. Or like, I love that because, I'm just sitting here now, I'm recording this with you. You're in America, I'm in Ireland, but this goes off out into the ether, the ether of Spotify and iTunes and the internet. And, and it lives there forevermore and will be marketed forevermore. So like, these conversations are the sorts of things that can spark the idea in people's minds and can help them maybe think of something that they didn't think of before. And I love the power of that. That's the power of the internet and, using these mediums to get your message out there. So I guess just talking about freelancers and agency owners, can we just kind of hone in on like what would be some of the typical ways you see them mismanage their finances?
Well, so I have 4 profit killers that we talk about. The first one is overspending, and you touched on that. I have to say, even with everything I know and as good as I am with this stuff, that's my killer. I like to spend. So, and so it's just, it's subscription bloat. It's only $20 a month. It's this, and what we have, and you could get this free on my website too. It's called a shiny object versus needed tool form. And it just breaks and it walks you through, a process that breaks the, emotional part of the buying process and engages your logical side of your mind that would say, okay, maybe we don't need a third like SEO keyword research tool. Maybe we're good with the one we have. So, and then, so there's overspending and there's underpricing. There's like, and you talked about that too a little bit. We touched on like imposter syndrome. It's like self-sabotage. We don't think we're, capable enough, good enough, to charge enough because we're too worried about, our competition and everything like that. And we haven't differentiated ourselves enough. So, and
I just like to, don't mean to cut across it, but just something that I want to mention on that too, because I know a lot of freelancers listen, is like, and you've experienced this, and I believe I have as well, where you were working with local clients in a local market, and maybe your local market, the going rate is a lot lower. You know what I mean? Like if you were to charge a higher rate, just people there wouldn't work with you. But when you're working online, it's a different ballgame because it's the world. You know what I mean? Like it's people in Australia, it's people in America, and therefore, you know, like underpricing, there's always people going to be, you're going to be able to charge a much higher fee when you're working remote and online because essentially your clients could be anybody, you know? So I just kind of want to put that in there as well with the underpricing. So, you know, don't let your local market determine your pricing when it comes to delivering your services online because you can charge a lot more online.
Yeah, and you know, my friend, like I said, she was like, well, why are you so committed to the local? And I was like, well, I wanted to help local businesses out. She says, she told me, she says, they have to have a problem. You have to have the solution, but they have to have the budget, because if they don't have the budget, you know, it's you're doing yourself and the other people that you could be helping a disservice. And even though we know this stuff, it's hard to apply it. Like, I mean, I know this stuff left and right, but even it's hard for me to apply. Like, it's funny how you said, go back and in full confession here. Well, I said, wouldn't it be neat if I treated myself as a client and did all the stuff I know to do? Well, I have my friends hold me accountable for actually doing that stuff. Because even like I know to do that stuff, but I might not actually do it. Like we're working on a video sales letter. I've helped many clients write video sales letter. I don't have one. And somebody said to me, Nev, you need a video sales letter. Get that done this week. So, and I was like, oh yeah. So I just think it's those things. Maybe we know this stuff, but we're just scared to implement it for ourselves.
Accountability. I mean, you hit on the word there, and that's it. Having an accountability partner really helps for anybody, even if you're just, you know, if you're doing freelancing, like, did you do this many sales calls? Did you send this many sales emails? And, you know, it can be a friend or it can be somebody maybe who you don't get along with, you know, and they're just that hard voice in your life, but they're important. And this is where coaches really help people, you know, when people hire business coaches. And it's not like, I mean, it's not necessarily that they're telling you some magic bullets. In a lot of cases, they're telling you the stuff you need to know, but they're holding you accountable to do it. And when you actually do the things that you said you were going to do and you know you should do, and somebody holds you accountable and you get them done, well, guess what? You get results. You know, like things start to happen because you're actually doing the stuff. But oh man, I 100% know what you mean about that. So, and I think everybody does. I mean, everyone can relate to that. But it's it's just important to have that accountability. And you know, sometimes you mess up and you have a bad day or a bad week, but like the point is just get back at it, you know, like just press refresh. Every day is a new day, and fair enough if you messed up. You know, I know especially now with coronavirus and everybody's locked in their houses, and maybe, you know, it's playing on people's minds. Like sometimes, like, you know, you might have a bad day, but it's just important to just try and brush it off and just, you know, press reset and go again, you know?
Oh yeah. I think that's going to determine the people that, so to go off on a little bit of maybe a tangent here though, but so right now we're in a situation, and recessions, they create massive opportunities, you know, when they clear up. You know, you could go back and look at, you know, all the like the massive companies right now that 2008 created, like Uber and Airbnb and a whole list of them. So right now, what you can do is you could hit reset every day and say, okay, you know, this has been really crappy what's happened lately. And then we could either be sad about it and not do anything about it and just worry about it, or we could realize that we're afraid, we're worried, we're upset, but what can I do? And just like what you were saying right there, and I think those are the people that decide to hunker down and create content to like what I'm telling my clients is give back to your clients. Like the woman that there's a good friend of mine that designed her, my website and everything, like that created that brand. And I said to her, she was really worried about, she was paralyzed, really worried about losing her retainer clients. And I said, well, what can you do for them? And I said, what can you do above and beyond to make them love you? And she says, we don't have a lot of business coming in right now. I said, increase their retainer hours by 25%. And she did that. She didn't lose one client.
There you go. You know, like, you know, you can't be frozen by it. You know, look, sometimes you lose clients, sometimes you lose a big client, it sucks. But I mean, you can't let that define you or your business. You know, you have to just, like, the online world and the business world in general. Look, some people are going to shut down. Some people are going to lose their business. Some people are going to be just fine. And you know, it's just trying to keep things ticking over and, you know, do what you can. Like that woman acted, and as a result of that, you know, she's in a better position. And hopefully, you know, as things pick up, if she's creating that content and putting the word out there, she'll get more clients that she needs.
And it's not like, and so it's not all rosy. Like, I mean, she's a really good friend of mine, so we talk a lot, and, you know, it's on a daily basis, whether she is, you know, upset and worried and scared, or she's a little bit happy or a little bit seeing like this is going to end and come out well. But she shows up every day and does her best. You know, whether her best is good enough that day or not, it might not be, but she does. And it's just that constant effort of showing up again and again and trying, you know, that I think is what's going to bring us through this, because nothing we have in our life that's worth having, that we appreciate, didn't take effort and struggle and pain to get.
For sure. And I mean, part of what you learn is through the journey of doing it as well, you know, like through that, applying that effort. And that's where the gratitude comes from in it. And, you know, you hit on another word there, which was consistency, you know, like, I mean, these are the important words. I know you were going through your for-profit killers, and we had overspend and underpricing, but kind of during the conversation, we also hit two very important words, which is the accountability and consistency of your work. So all these things are important. So what would be number 3?
So would be your cash flow. And I think right now, this is the most critical one. So, because cash flow is not only queen right now, it's king. And understanding how our money is coming in and out of our business. And because and I'm just using these numbers hypothetically, when we were making $100,000, you know, and you were wasting 10. And so, you know, your actual, what you made from your business was 90 because you wasted 10,000 on stuff that you didn't even realize, subscriptions, all sorts of other stuff, you know, that, you know, you can still live a pretty good life to 90,000 US. You can still live a pretty good life on 90,000 US, you know, you know, you're not going poor. I mean, you're not going hungry, you know, but if your income drops to 40 and you still have that 10,000 that you're like kind of wasting, just kind of like, it's just kind of seeping out. Now you're making 30. And the difference between 30 and 40 is a hell of a lot more impactful than 90 to 100. So, and like these numbers were just to illustrate a point, but what I'm saying is right now we need to be extra sure about what we're doing, you know, how we're spending our money, because we all have bills to pay and we need to make smarter decisions right now than we made when we were really flush with money. So to that end, we have and we've made all this stuff free. We have, it's called an expense killer on our website right now, that you download this. It's training that you go through it. It'll take maybe an hour. And, you know, I have people that save anywhere from $40 a month to upwards of $1,000 a month, you know, just by going through and being able to eliminate stuff, finding stuff that they're getting billed for that they didn't even know they were still getting billed for. And then we do that drill every 6 months, because like I said, overspending right here. So,
I mean, everybody's guilty of it when you have it coming in, because like you're saying, it's that tool, that software. I was only doing it earlier on today. Yeah, I was just having a look at all the different ones that I'm using, you know, and it's like you're saying, am I using 2 for SEO? Am I using 2 for graphics? Like, do I really need, you know, this one and that one? Like, you know, a Trello subscription and an Asana subscription are the same bloody thing, you know, like it's, you know, and often maybe you just pick these things up, like you're saying, 10 a month here, 40 a month here, 30 a month here, and it all matters. So that's over at nevharris.com. Right on the homepage, there's a big button there, kill your expenses now, which would trigger the pop up and give you the sheet that you're talking about. Because look, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's for free. Like, you know, it's one of these things, like we were saying, you know, like it's uncomfortable for people because sometimes people don't like to shine a light on, you know, maybe where they're being inefficient, you know, and like, I guess the thing to just bring out here is like, it's everybody, you know, everybody most people, not everybody, like most people will have, some areas where maybe they're spending cash inefficiently, and like you're saying, they're leaking it out of the bucket, they're not saving it, or putting it into something that could be more beneficial for the business, and these are the important things. Just when it comes to cash flow, I guess one of the biggest things, always with freelancers, what they're always telling me is that they're chasing money. So like, what have you seen to be some of the better ways to try and help mitigate, like, just chasing money with clients? You know what I mean? Is it an upfront payment? Is it a monthly subscription via credit card, like on an online cart? What has been the best way to try and help? Because, you can plan for cash flow and you can have clients, but, ultimately, if the clients aren't paying the bills, then the money's not coming in. So that seems to be a problem for a lot of freelancers.
Well, I will answer this question in two ways. One, I will give you some tips to getting money in, and then I'll give you more of a strategy kind of play to mitigate that effect. Because, in this space, in this industry, that is a reality. So how do we? What's that?
Sorry, no, I'm just saying 100%. Yeah, ask any freelancers. They'll all tell you, like, that's part of the game, and it's a horrible part of the game. It's not nice.
It sucks.
So yeah, I'm just curious because this is your industry, this is your thing. So like, what would you suggest? Any tips, strategies? Any advice you can give people who to try and ideally help avoid that situation, but if they're in that situation, like some of the better ways to handle it.
So here's what I say. And here's things that we've tried in my agency and to mitigate this. In my, we have another company that does a magazine and everything like that. So credit cards, get as much billing that you can on credit cards. Better terms. So it's just, I was just working with just a friend of mine. I was talking to her the other day, and she was talking about this project she's working on, and her terms are she does 30%, 50%, then 10%. And I was like, well, that's crazy, because the customer could stretch that out. They have 60% of your money. And she's like, I'm 85% done with the project, but I'm only, I've only got paid for 30%. I was like, that's not good. So getting at least trying to get everything up front. And, a lot of times people won't pay everything up front. So, but a lot of times what we say people won't do is just in our head, and they'll actually do it. It's just our head trash. It's our self-limiting belief about what they will and won't do. So I would say, you want to at least get, 50, if not 70% of that money before you start, and then have checkoffs where, you're getting more. And you can get that on credit card, but there's another way in America. So what happens with a credit card? All they have to do is cancel their credit card, or the expiration date expires, or just something's going to happen. So there's something called an ACH, and also you're paying 3%. So to the credit card company, there's something called ACH, and I don't, confusing term what it stands for, but what it means is it's instead of coming from a credit card, you're drafting the money straight from their bank account. And you're like, oh, they'd never give me your bank account information. You'd be shocked that if you tell them this is the process, you could confidently say, this is my process, here's how I get paid. And then now, like, you're drawing that money straight from their bank account. So you're going to get that money. And a lot of times, even if they don't have that money, you'll still get your money. It might bounce and it might be reversed, but it might bounce and go through, and then they're stuck with having to deal with their bank. And because you will become a bottom priority when a client's having tough times,
Absolutely, especially the digital marketing freelancers. This is it. This is real talk, and this is, as you were saying, your experience over there. And I have friends who are freelancers, and I know people who've had this happen to them. And like you're saying, often the social media manager, the freelance writer, the web designer, the graphics person can be the last to get paid. Number 4 of the profit killers. What's the final one beyond CAC?
Could I jump back to
Sorry. Yeah, there was another point, wasn't there? Sorry, my apologies.
No problem. Because I think this isn't a key point to getting paid, but I also think this is just one of the biggest messages that I could get across right now, and what you could be doing right now to, even if you don't have this right now, fix things. It's recurring revenue. It's having some way. It's so if you don't get paid by if Joe Blow's business is sticking you in and slow paying you and everything like that. If you already had enough recurring revenue coming in to cover your expenses and he was going to be profit, yeah, it sucks. You want that. You earned it. You deserve it. But it's not as critical. It's not going to cause as much problems for you if you have a lot of recurring revenue coming in. So having a way, like having something you sell that creates recurring revenue coming in is so key. In the agency side, probably, it's like web care plans, like web hosting, web maintenance, and everything like that. It's, it could be doing a marketing retainer. It could be doing like some kind of social media, like monthly kind of management. It could be coming up with something you sell as a product and turning it into or something you sell as a service and turning it into like productizing it. So, you get paid monthly for it.
Yeah, and affiliate as well, a little bit of,
oh yeah,
affiliate
great.
marketing as well. Like you're obviously going to be an affiliate for the hosting companies and domain companies with the clients that you're working with. But I mean, I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. The recurring revenue is the gold, and as a freelancer, it's best if you can secure those sorts of deals. Even if you're an e-commerce store, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for, consumable products that will bring you recurring revenue that have a subscription model. To me, that's the gold in e-commerce, that anyone who's doing those sorts of businesses, that, those are the ones. If I was getting into, that's where I'd be, because it's predictable revenue. Like that's the most important thing, is predictable revenue. And then, if you know what money's coming in every month, then you can survive, and you can navigate these hard times. And like you're saying, when you're chasing that big invoice for that big project that you did, it doesn't shut you down, and it doesn't put an end to your situation and put you in difficult times, because you have these recurring models, be that through affiliate, through smaller packages, that you can easily productize and sell, versus these big projects that take up a lot of your time and resources.
Oh, what's this one? Well, the thing. So I've talked to a lot of business owners, because I have a podcast that's coming out someday. But I've already had about 8 interviews with just people I know that I was like, hey, look, let's have a chat about this kind of stuff. How'd you survive a recession? That's in our business. That is in the agency freelancer space. And the recurring theme is 2 recurring themes. One of them is they had a source of, they created a source of recurring revenue. And 2 is either they created it during the recession or they created it, that they had it going in. And 2 is they didn't hide from it. They charged, and they were scared, and they created some pretty big companies, but they were scared, they were afraid, but they didn't let it hold them back. And so that's very important. And so how was I able to transition into doing this was because I have a magazine that it's a direct mail magazine. That's a pain in the neck to do. I don't like it. I want to get rid of it. I hope none of my clients are listening. But it creates cash flow. It creates a lot of recurring revenue for us, because it's every quarter we come out with this magazine and we make money off it. So that helps, us. This funded me starting the agency and helped me fund it starting this brand, is having that, recurring revenue in. So, yeah.
I mean, I see this a lot with bloggers, even, a lot of, like, to just come out the gate and be a blogger and make money is, I mean, near impossible. You know what I mean? Like, nobody does that. Like, most people, what they'll do is they might start a website or a niche site or, blog about something, but then they're doing the services on the side. And the services provide the revenue to keep you alive, but also to fund that project while you build that website, or a podcast or whatever it is that you're doing. But to that point where it's generating enough revenue that you could then live off, like you don't just come out the gate doing it. You typically provide the service that brings the revenue, and then you build that other thing on the side, like be that an agency or, a website for like affiliate marketing is a big thing that some of the listeners are into. So, I mean, that's the sort of websites, you're building, let's say, a vegan blog and you're just recommending supplements for vegans and juices for vegans. And, eventually you get that ranking, and then that might bring in enough revenue for you to live off,
I love affiliate marketing. I've never dipped my toe really into it, but I think it's, when I see people that are able to do that, I'm like, man, that is so cool. That's such a neat way to make money.
100%. Even, I mean, I worked with one of a financial advisor in Ireland, and, he had no idea about it. And then, we kind of got to talking about it, and it turns out most insurance companies have affiliate programs, most, even financial services companies would have affiliate programs. And all of a sudden you're like, Jesus, yeah, I mean, it's a referral fee, essentially. So like for people who don't know what it is, it's kind of like a referral fee. If I sent somebody over, using an imaginary scenario, if Nev had a referral fee for sending somebody over to him, for every person I sent, he gives me $100, then, that's the commission on the affiliate, and some people when they sell courses will give a commission on, if I sent you over to somebody's course and then you bought the course, I'd get a kickback. That's effectively all that it is. I'm just getting conscious of time, so we'll circle back to number 4 on the profit killer. So we've had overspend, underprice, and cash flow. And what's number 4?
Number 4 is it's the simplest one we could. It's taxes. It's if in the US and I don't know, Australia, and I'm pretty sure the UK, you have to make quarterly tax payments if you're self-employed. So what happens is you're not accounting for taxes, and you think you've had a really good quarter, and then all of a sudden you get hit with a tax bill and it wipes out what you thought your profit was.
Yeah, I've talked, I think I spoke on, it was episode 2 a long while ago about this exact situation where, if you're not putting your taxes away, and then when that tax bill comes, that just takes the wind right out of your sails, Or maybe you thought, like you were saying, maybe you were overspending a bit and you were spending money that should have been kept for taxes and it wasn't. And then when that bill comes, in Ireland, it's yearly. So, it's even worse if you get hit with it, because you get, you file at the end of October and then you get your bill in November, right before Christmas. If you don't have a good accountant, you get a big fat bill. But yeah, it's a year's worth, not a quarter. So, but of course, you can do these things, and your accountant could be, if you're a business, submitting them quarterly and doing everything that way. But typically, sole traders and freelancers who don't have a limited company, let's say, and are just sole traders, they would typically, So yeah, no, look, so that's it. So those are the 4 profit killers. You got overspend, underprice, and cash flow and taxes. Nev, so look, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode as well. So yeah, where can people find you if they wanted to get in touch? I know you mentioned there's a podcast coming. Let me know. Do you have a name for it yet? When are you planning on releasing it? What's the details?
The podcast is called Profit and Impact, and we are dealing with the Apple approval mess right now. So we're in limbo with Apple. We're waiting to get our approval. But how to get a hold of me? I'm the Nev Harris, pretty much across all social platforms. I think I'm nev.harris on Instagram, but we should change. It's bad marketing. And then my website's nevharris.com, and there's all the links right there. And we have a Facebook group, nevharris.com/Facebook group, that we put a lot of free training into.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to get all the links and add them to the podcast episode over at digitalnomadcafe.com. You should be able to click out in Spotify now as well. I think you can click out to the links if you're listening there. So, Nev, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey and your story. Lots of insights there for agency owners and freelancers when it comes to cash flow, especially relevant and important and topical at this time. So, just thank you, and thank you to the listeners for tuning in.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. Head over to the website to access the resources and links mentioned in today's episode at digitalnomadcafe.com.